If you have a back to school night or open house night coming up, you might be going, what am I supposed to do with those? Sometimes the school doesn't give you a ton of information, so what I wanted to do is to share with you 2 possibilities for your back to school night plan and how I've used them in different situations depending on the instructions given to me by the school. Let's get right into it. Hey, my name is Ashley, aka Señorita Spanish, and if you're new here, you might not know that links to everything that I mentioned are going to be down in the description box below. So if you need anything, that's where you can check out for further links and just, stuff that I'm going to share coming right up. So for back to school night / parent, like meet the teacher, open house kind of things, there's 2 different ways that I've seen this structured. One is a super open-ended, your teachers are going to be in their classrooms, the parents and guardians can just kind of float around and meet them. Like that's it, that's the whole night. And they have like an hour and a half where you have to be there, or sometimes 2 to 3 hours where you have to be there and just be available. And you're like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And the school's like, be there. And you're like, okay. And the other option that I have seen is an extremely structured night where the parents and sometimes their students come together and they get their school schedule, and there is a bell schedule that rings and they move through their students' class schedule. And as they're at each period, you have, maybe 6 to 8 to 10 minutes to meet them, tell them a little bit of information, and then that's it. So depending on which way your school structures back to school night, I'm going to share 2 different ways you can handle that, okay? So let's start with the more open-ended, they're just going to kind of come and go sort of deal. And I actually think that's far more stressful. So the way that I like to handle that is to have a slideshow or at least one slide up on the screen that has my name and contact info, and then just some boundaries around that contact info. Usually it's just like a sentence, but it says like, hi, I check emails between the hours of 8 to 4. I might not email you back immediately, especially if I'm in class. However, you can expect to hear from me within 24 business hours or something like that. On the tables, or honestly, I kind of do it the same way. I have something, like if I have something I want students to pick up as they're coming into class, I usually put a desk or a stool right in front of the door so that way they can't really get in without walking by it. I do that same thing with the handouts I want guardians to see on back to school night. So I have one desk with the 90% time in the target language handout, and I have one desk with the syllabus. And if you don't know what those look like or what they are, I'll make sure to link to my videos on them for you here. So I have one video where I detail in full what I put on my syllabus and what it looks like and all that sort of stuff. And I have a video where I've already explained the 90% time target language handout. So I'm not going to go into either of those in too much detail in case you've already seen those. I don't want to waste your time. And if you haven't, you can go check them out if you want. When they walk into the classroom, I have those just sitting right there on the desks. And if it's just like that kind of open, go with the flow sort of thing, then I'm going to be greeting them and saying hi to them, talking to them as they come in. But usually what happens is I'll get into a conversation with like a group of, maybe 2, maybe 4 guardians, something like just like a couple of them. They tend to come in clumps, right? So I'll be chatting with them, introducing myself, explaining some things on the handouts, that kind of thing. And other people start kind of filtering in. And the reason why I like to have a slide up or a couple of slides up is so that way they can start getting kind of that information. So they're going to grab the handouts, they're going to look around, they might see the slide, and if they've got just the one slide with my name and that kind of basic info on it, that's fine. But I also do like to set it on like a loop so they can just see a bunch of different slides where it's like, maybe a little bit of meet the teacher information, maybe some of that contact info, maybe, hey, did you grab these handouts? Did you look at the handouts that you grabbed? Maybe make sure you've done that kind of thing. And usually by the time I'm done having a conversation with this kind of clump of guardians, those guardians who came in have picked up the handouts, have kind of stared at the screen for a little bit, and I'm able to, shuffle on to the next group. It's just kind of like hosting a party, right? You got to just make sure you say hi to everybody, check out, make sure they have what they need, like that sort of thing. So if your open house is not super go with the flow, like it's instead very, very, very structured, they have a set amount of time where they're going to come in and you are going to be expected to give these parents some sort of presentation, and you're going, what am I supposed to talk to them about, right? Because sometimes the schools give you no information at all. They just tell them what you need them to know, and you're like, I don't know, answer my emails when I email them and help make their student do the stuff that I need them to do. Like that's pretty much the gist. And you're like, that took me 2 seconds. How am I supposed to have a 10-minute presentation? Let's look at what you could tell them. So I actually got this idea from MAESTRA LOCA. She has an awesome blog and website. I'll make sure to link to her down in the description box below. But what she recommended doing, and I tried it and totally loved it, is basically doing like a demo class for the grown-ups who come into your room. She has a free download with like all of the stuff that you need to do this. So again, I'll just link to it below. I'll just give you an overview of how I kind of shifted it a tish because we had a pretty short time frame. And so like she had several activities she did in her demo lesson. I looked at them and I said, there's no way we're going to be able to get through all of those in our, I think it was like an 8-minute class period because they're, you know, right there rotating. So instead, I just looked at her lesson and I said, okay, there's a movie talk in here. Movie talk is something I feel really comfortable with. Like if you've been around my channel at all before, you've probably heard me refer to movie talk as like my gateway to CI activity because I find it something that is really easy to do with like all of the visual support. The students find it engaging and interesting. I love that I don't have to come up with a story because we're relying on the movie. Her download has a movie talk in there that I love and I used with the parents, and actually I had some kids mixed in there too. So I like that it wasn't a movie talk I do regularly as like part of my normal curriculum. Instead, right, we just use it for this one thing. Anyways, so they all come in, I have them find their seats, I'm greeting them, and then we just get right into it. And I do the movie talk. I like set up their expectations. I tell them to make sure they like are nodding their head, their eyes are on the screen. I'm checking for understanding. We're doing circling. I'm asking them questions, and we move this sucker along pretty fast, like faster than I usually would go, but just again checking to make sure that they're understanding and they're with me, right? Okay. So when we get to the end of the movie talk, we do a little bit of reflection. How did you feel? How did you know what was happening? Did you know what was happening? Okay, you did know what was happening. Phew, okay, good, right? Did you feel pretty comfortable? Did you feel confident? Do you feel like you understood Spanish? And we talk through all of that with them, and we talk about what tools did they use and what tools did I give them to help them be successful. And I said, hey, you know, we just spent 6 minutes in Spanish. How many of you spoke Spanish or speak Spanish? You're gonna have a mix of parents who had Spanish in high school but don't remember anything, who speak Spanish, and those who are like, well, yeah, I know hola and cerveza because ha ha ha. There's gonna be a mix of ability levels in your class, and that's totally fine. So you do the movie talk, you do a quick reflection, and then I usually bring out the 90% time in the target language handout, and I talk with them about how their students are going to be expected to be using those tools that they just used, looking at the visual supports, looking at me, or like making sure they're following along in some way, shape, or form, right? Showing comprehension, answering questions, because otherwise I don't know that they're getting, right? That sort of thing. We have that whole talk. After we go through the 90% time handout, I hand out my syllabus, give them some time to look at it, ask if they have any questions, make sure they know how they can get a hold of me, again, set those boundaries for contact time, make sure they know how long I have to email them back, make sure they know I will not be emailing anybody at 10 p.m. Just doesn't happen. Okay, thanks so much. It was so nice to meet you. Again, if you need anything, here's my email. Cool. I'll see you around, probably at parent-teacher conferences. Thanks, bye. That's the whole night. And it goes super fast because then you're going to do it again. And I do that with all Spanish classes, whether or not they're 1s or 2s, because if we're doing that same style of learning, I might not have had them last year, or I might have had them last year. It's good for them to get the reminder. There you go. So that's 2 different ways you can handle your back to school night, whether it's super open-ended or super structured. I have 4 different resources that I use during them that I mentioned. So La Maestra LOCA's slideshow, the 90% time in the target language handout, the syllabus handout, and then the meet the teacher slides. And I will make sure to link all of those down in the description box below. The 90% time in the target language YouTube video and the syllabus YouTube video where I go through what's on those in much more detail. I will make sure to link to those down in the description box below as well, in case you're like, but what are they seeing on those handouts? You can go check that out, okay? If you have any questions, or if you have done something differently in your open house night, meet the teacher night, back to school night, whatever the heck you call it night, just drop me a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you do and what you have done that's been successful. Or, you know, of course, if you have any questions about the 2 ideas that I've shared with you here, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.